All right, and we're moving on to properties of kites and trapezoids. We're going to use these properties to solve a few problems today. And so here are a couple of vocabulary terms. First of all, a kite is a quadrilateral with exactly two pairs of consecutive, meaning next to each other, congruent sides. And so that looks like this. Here's a kite. We have those two are consecutive and they are congruent, and these two are consecutive and they are congruent. Consecutive meaning next to each other. Okay, next we have a trapezoid. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. And I have an example of a trapezoid here. So we will look at that. This is a trapezoid. And there are a couple of vocab terms you need to know about this trapezoid. First of all, you need to know that the base of a trapezoid are the parallel sides. So in this picture, we have, this is a base, and this is a base. So BC and AD are the bases. The legs of the trapezoids are the non-parallel sides. Okay, so this is a leg of a trapezoid, and this is another leg of a trapezoid. The base angles are in a pair, and they are the ones that are two consecutive angles that share the base. So two consecutive angles that share a base. So in our picture here, this angle and this angle, angle D and angle A, are base angles. And also angle B and angle C are base angles. Okay, so now we know a few of the terms about trapezoid. There's also something called an isosceles trapezoid, and that is just like what an isosceles triangle is. An isosceles triangle is when two or more of the side lengths are congruent, and in an isosceles trapezoid, it's when you have the two legs congruent. And I'll show you a picture of that in just a minute. And a mid-segment of a trapezoid is a segment whose endpoints are the midpoints of the legs, and I will also show you a picture of that in just a minute. Okay, so those are our vocabulary terms. Let's go ahead and turn this over and talk about a few properties of kites. Okay, so a kite has perpendicular diagonals. So if I were to draw in diagonals here, and if we knew that these two consecutive sides were congruent there, we know that it was a kite. And because it's a kite, then we can say that AC is perpendicular to BD. Okay? A kite also has one pair of opposite congruent angles. So if this is a kite, the pair of opposite angles are angle B and D, the ones that are connected to each one. The angle is one each of the two different sides here. So angle A and angle C will not be congruent, only angle B and angle D. So angle B is congruent to angle D. And so those are some properties of kites. So now let's move on to isosceles trapezoids. Here are some isosceles trapezoids. I told you that you would see that. So we know that these are isosceles trapezoids because we have one pair of congruent or parallel sides, and we have the legs congruent. So all three of these are isosceles trapezoids. The first one is, if it's isosceles trapezoid, then the base angles are congruent. So angle B is congruent to angle C, and angle A is congruent to angle D. The second one is actually a way to prove that it's an isosceles trapezoid. If it's a trapezoid that it has congruent base angles. So if we're told that this is true, I shouldn't have put this on here. Just take those off. So if we are told that the base angles are congruent, then we can say that ABCD is isosceles. Okay, and if it's an isosceles trapezoid, then the diagonals are congruent. So if we were to draw diagonals in here, then this would be congruent to this one. I should put 2 tick marks there. And this should be congruent to this one. Okay, so diagonals are congruent, so AC is congruent to BD. And those are some properties of isosceles trapezoids. Okay, a few more things here. First of all, the mid-segment theorem of a trapezoid. I told you that you would see this. Here it is. So the mid-segment theorem, if we have a mid-segment, that means that it is at the midpoint of the 2 legs and it's connecting. So it's a segment that's connecting those. And the cool thing about the mid-segment is that it's parallel to both of the bases. So that means that XY is parallel to BC and XY is parallel to AD. So in fact, all 3 of these are parallel to each other as well. Okay? Also, it's an average of the bases. So the length of XY equals 1/2 of BC plus AD. So if you add those 2 together and divide by 2, then you'll get the length of the mid-segment. Okay? So a few things here. We've now learned all the different types of special quadrilaterals we are going to now. So let's see if we can fill this in. A parallelogram has opposite sides parallel. That's its definition. A rectangle has 4 right angles, and a rhombus has 4 congruent sides. So that means that a square has 4 right angles and 4 congruent sides. Okay? We have trapezoid here, where we have 2 parallel sides only. And then we have isosceles trapezoid, where we have legs are congruent. And then here we have kite, where we have 2 sets of consecutive sides are parallel, or congruent, excuse me. 2 sides of consecutive sides are congruent to each other. Okay, so now let's do a few problems. I just have a few here for you. And the first one is a kite. And we know that it's a kite because we have these markings here. And we have a few bits of information. First of all, we are told that PQR is 78, so let's write that in, 78 degrees. We're told that TRS is 59 degrees. And what else do we know about a kite? Well, we know that their diagonals are perpendicular, so this has to be a right angle, and in fact, all of these are right angles. So because these are right angles, this is a right triangle here, and these 2 triangles are congruent because of hypotenuse, leg. This leg right here is congruent to itself. So these 2 triangles are congruent, which means that their corresponding parts are also congruent. So this is 59 degrees over here. And so what we can do is we can find this degree by going 90 minus 59, right? Because all the angles in a triangle add to 180. We took out 90, which means we have 90 left. So these 2 are complements of each other. So 90 minus 59 is 31. And so that means that this is also 31 degrees over here. Okay, so what can we do over on this side? Well, this whole angle is 78. These two triangles here are congruent to each other also because of hypotenuse leg, which means that if we take half of 78, which is 39, so this is 39 degrees and this is 39 degrees here and here, then we know those 2 angles there. And once again, we can also see that this angle is going to be 90 minus 39 now because of all 3 angles in a triangle add to 180. And we already took out 90, which means we have 90 left. And so the acute angles are complements. So if we go 90 minus 39, we get 51. So that means this is also 51 degrees over here. So now we can go ahead and enter in all of the things that we are trying to find. So QRT. So QRT is here. We found that that was 51. And QPS is here. So that's going to be 51 plus 59, which is 110. And lastly, PSR is here, this whole thing. So that's 31 plus 31 is 62. Yay, we did it. Okay, so now we have a mid-segment. We're going to try and find the other base. So what do we know about the formula? The formula is 1/2 of the bases, so base 1 plus base 2 equals the mid-segment. So 1/2 of, what's my base 1 and base 2 are 25 and x. So 25 plus x equals the mid-segment, which is 16.5. So now I want to get rid of this fraction first. I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of that 1/2 there. So I have 25 plus x equals 33. Minus 25 on both sides, and I get x equals 8. So my answer is 8. Okay, and there we have it. Thanks for watching.